It is what it is. Those are just the notes. Hello, we are live on stream.
Hello.
It's 7 a.m. PST. The delay is gonna kill me, but y'all gonna have to do with me randomly pausing to catch up with my audio. Okay, well, welcome to the first panel of day 2 for Winter in the Woodlands. My name is Charlie.
Kara.
Kara. We are wives. We are baristas, and I'm a Lolita. I'm getting them into it by proxy, somewhat. But we're going to present to you a panel on crafting a cup of coffee and things we think you should know. We're going to go over some coffee history, go into curating your palette, give you a demo, and this is all from a third wave Bay Area perspective, and we can explain what that means later. That sound good?
Sounds good.
Sweet. All right. Need to keep my sweary pants off. Oh yeah, so covering introductions. Charlie, we're both they them. They have a they them.
There we are.
There we are. I've been in and out of Lolita fashion since 2009, mostly due to financial constraints, but this year I was able to stabilize a little more and actually focus time and stuff on that, which is nice. I created NeoRococoMemes right after Frilly memes imploded. I'm gonna have to take this out of my ear just so I can have this delay going. But I saw Frilly memes doing the xenophobic stuff, and I was like, I can do that better. And then when they ended their page, the quarantine started, and I just decided to make a page. So that's the end of all that. Kara, do you want to go?
Yes. So I've been a barista on and off, more so on for the last 10 years. I do quality control and I help run the floor at Redacted.
Yes.
We're currently transitioning our roastery. We're just waiting on a lot of permits and a lot of things to come through, but I am part of the roasting team as well.
They're also my way.
Please don't do it. Don't drag me.
Okay, we'll ask you about the food thing then. That could be
You can.
a question for later. Okay, I'll save it for the Q&A. All right. This is a disclaimer because there is no real way for us to know everything. Even after like 10 years of experience of being in the industry, it's a broad upon broad field. And what we're giving today is as factual as we can give you, but it is largely opinion, as most of coffee is. Classes like this normally run people a couple $100 to learn things in depth. And I say that because I hate that that's the thing. Like, coffee is already so entrenched in classism that, like, I hate that information is behind a paywall, especially such a high paywall for stuff that's literally the basics. So we're going to give you the best we can, as in depth as we can. And this is, though, for all intents and purposes, meant to give a brief overview. So if you wanted to take a coffee class later, this is a good foundational. All right, this is the overview of what we're going to be covering. So part 1, brief history of coffee. It's going to be focusing less on like European coffee culture and more on the people who made coffee what it is. We're going to go back into some colonialism. It's going to mention slavery. It's a content warning. This red thing tape behind all of those being flagged, it is going to stay there until part 1 is done. So in case this is a little too heavy a topic for you in the morning, you can kind of keep this running in the background, mute the tab, check back in on the visual every now and again, and if you see that this is gone, then it means we're past that part in the morning. Wonderful idea from my wife.
Part 2.
Then part 2, coffee and the user end. We're going to be going over more like what you can actually do with the coffee and what it kind of means to interact with it. Part 3, then we'll be transitioning to a demonstration. Coffee can will become an actual thing, y'all see. We're going to do it for a drip coffee machine, technically. French press, which we have, and a Toledo wave pour over system, which we have half of. And then part 4, we'll have a Q&A. So small questions throughout is totally fine, but save big questions for the end, especially because I can't click back and forth the whole time. Cool. That sounds good. Awesome. So already on to part 1, a brief history of coffee. And I say brief, I want it to be brief because it is a lot. So if this is too much for you, I encourage you to stay if you can. But if this is a little real for 7:05 a.m. in the morning, that's redundant. You can click off. All right. Cool. It's important. It's important to start with this headspace. If you are in the U.S. or Canada, you are on stolen land. Yep, this is where we're starting. But I encourage you to find out whose land you are on. If you go to native-land.ca, you'll see this user-generated map, and I have an example on screen for the San Francisco Bay Area. It'll show you coastal boundaries, language boundaries, treatises, boundaries, and any sort of historical boundary. And I think it gives you that disclaimer when you click into the link. But it will tell you whose land you are on approximately. And I encourage you to pay rent. This audio is going. I encourage you to pay rent in some way, shape, or form. There's a program in Seattle for the indigenous people there and for Seattleites to actually pay rent. You could probably Google the program and you'd find more information on it. Not every indigenous people is going to have. Is there a reason my mic was muted? Is it audio hell in here?
It might just be my mic.
Oh, coffee can is also picking up the audio. Yeah. Okay, no, I can at least still hear myself. Yeah. Okay, sorry, just double checking on this since I couldn't click back and forth.
And
yes, it was coming in twice.
Yes, put salt in your coffee.
Oh yeah, sorry. About this outfit, I put a poll on my Instagram whether or not I wanted to do a bodyline dress in case I ruin it, or the My Coffee Time dress or skirt. I only own the skirt, and I couldn't fit the My Coffee Time dress, and I just got this meta dress in the mail, so I'm deciding to wear my new expensive dress for coffee mail. Aha. Anyway, go back to the actual panel. If you're in the US or Canada, you're on stolen land. This map, somebody asked in chat, it is of the San Francisco Bay Area. If you see where it says Ramaitush, that is the San Francisco Peninsula. It goes around down to Ohlone, Tamien. Very sorry if I'm saying those wrong, probably am. But that's San Francisco down to San Jose and around. But let's see. Oh, could you bring chat? Yes, I think that might be helpful. All right, awesome. So yeah, not every system is going to have the same rent system. What I can encourage you to do though is to type in the name of the indigenous tribe whose land you're on and type in GoFundMe and find a GoFundMe with those two things and donate to that, because for almost every single one of these tribes, peoples, I could find a GoFundMe for them, which is the state of things. So I encourage you to at least just make the effort. And why are we starting with that? Why are we starting there? Isn't this a coffee panel? I wanted to at least acknowledge that the coffee trade as we know it today exists because of imperialism and owes a great bit to the Atlantic slave trade, to say the least. Continuing without at least acknowledging this fact would be a great disservice. I have these links on screen. I will have a compilation of links to post in the Discord, and if you wanted to just message NeoRococoMemes later for a link to the compilation, I can give that to you, but I don't have it quite yet. I've been working all week. We both have. The economic potential associated with coffee production and consumption influence actions of imperialism and colonialism furthermore generating social and political dynamics of the colonizers and natives revolving around the history of coffee. There's a link to that quote. If anything's in quotes, it's not my words. Get it. All right. I'm also going to read off this slide because the way they put it is better than I could probably say.
It's all very dense.
It is also very dense. And audiobook. The coffee crop originated in Africa and the highlands of Ethiopia. Eventually, it came to be traded throughout the Middle East, Asia, Europe, and the Americas via European colonizers. As with most imported goods at the time, the success of coffee was dependent on the slave trade, especially through triangular trade. This is the arrangement whereby European colonial powers established colonies in tropical areas suitable for coffee growing, like the Caribbean, Asia, and Central and South America. They would then import enslaved people from Africa to these colonies to labor on the coffee plantations before exporting the coffee back to Europe, thus creating the triangle. In some areas, like Latin America, coffee production depended less on enslaved people and more on indigenous populations. Mayan land, for example, was optimal for growing. As a result, the Mayan people were increasingly evicted and forced to work on the land that they once claimed. It is important to understand the history of the coffee industry to understand why certain parts of the world dominate production. Moreover, it makes visible the remnants of slavery that continue to impact today's coffee industry. Coffee continues to be grown by indigenous people and communities of color, often in impoverished communities. And while African coffees are frequently awarded for being some of the best in the world, African growing communities have had to rise to this level in post-colonialist nations that were left without infrastructure or stable political systems. This is a synthesis blog post by Groundwork Coffee Roasters. It does not fall upon me lightly that a lot of these sources are not going to be by the people who actually are most affected by them. They are by probably white people in the coffee industry. It is what's readily available, but I encourage you guys to talk to roasters or I guess interact with anything that they might have written themselves. All right, and this is something I brought up. This is the coffee bean growing belt. The reason it's in this part of the presentation is because I want everybody to look at all of the countries that fall under this belt and all of the places that coffee is even able to be grown, and know that in almost every single one, if not literally all of them, there is a story of being colonized. There's a story of imperialism. Every single one. There's one specific story I wanted to pull as kind of an exemplar. Called, at the beginning, though, coffee was discovered around the 1400s, and it was traded throughout the Ottoman Empire, but it was specifically, I believe, let me see, the 1600s, the 1690s, where the Dutch arrive in the port of Mocha. That's the port. They arrive in Mocha, which is where that word comes from, but it was a city in Yemen, and they stole coffee plants, straight up stole coffee plants, and that was like the inciting event for the rest of like coffee industry everywhere else outside of what was the old Ottoman Empire. They took it and created a monopoly, but specifically by bringing those coffee plants to Indonesia, specifically to Java, which is also where that word comes from, if people weren't aware. It was one of their colonization efforts. It was a imperialist perfect storm of inhumane labor producing maximum profit. During all of this, the Dutch introduced also coffee to Sri Lanka, to Ceylon, and there were rebellions of enslaved people that destabilized it, which is good. But then the British saw that and decided that that was grounds to take it over, which is worse. And then after they took it over and created their own monopoly, they made it even worse. Because the people on the island were initially cotton weavers, they introduced cotton and flooded the market to force them off of their farms to work for coffee. And that's the short of it. There's a lot worse things that happen there, but I do not feel like it's comfortable for me to beleaguer on a point of such cruelty for that long. Just know that that story, as short as it is, one, way more dense, and two, happened in almost every single country on this coffee growing map. I'm going to move on from here to what does it look like now? Production shifted to low-wage countries. The motive, to boost profits by substituting low-wage labor abroad for more expensive labor at home, thereby slashing wage bills while avoiding direct confrontation with workers. Much of what used to be called the Third World was turned into a giant export processing zone, producing cheap inputs and consumer goods for Europe and North America. As a result, profits, prosperity, and social peace in rich countries became ever more dependent on super exploitation of hundreds of millions of workers in poor countries. This must be called by its true name: imperialism, a new, modern, capitalist form of imperialism. And that is a quote from John Smith for Open Democracy. I just edited it to the page to make sense. That is essentially where it is now. It's not like imperialism has stopped. I will unfortunately break the news to you now that there is no real, true, ethical way to consume coffee. If this is the first time you're hearing it, sorry you had to hear it now, but I'm glad you did. So that way you can go forward and still strive to find the most ethical source you can with the knowledge we'll hopefully give you. Where to go from here? So what you can really do is it just comes down to researching coffee roasters in your area and seeing what kind of relationship they might have with their roasters farms. Basically the most impacted people at the bottom, or I guess the top of that chart that's on the screen. It's not always easy to find this information. Sometimes you do have to email, sometimes you do have to dig or call, but if you are really concerned about it, it is something that's worth doing. If they're fair trade, they'll say so. This is something I wanted to note because fair trade is a certification that has a lot of hoops and jumps associated with the label. They do have to go through a lot of certification and paperwork to achieve fair trade status. So like legally, they cannot claim fair trade if they are not certified. So that's something to look for if you're interested. I put at a minimum, but I wanted to kind of take that out. I just forgot. Are they transparent about what farms they buy from? Because sometimes that information is not always readily known, right?
No, if you're asking your cashier, I can guarantee they make minimum wage and probably won't know. Yeah. But you can ask them to ask the roaster. You can keep going down the chain. You can find out.
Yeah, there's always a way to find out most of this information, but if they're hesitant to give it up, there's a couple of reasons why that would be. I mean, small businesses don't want to give away their sources, but if it's in the sake of transparency, there, even if two roasters got the same green bean, there's no reason that they're going to turn out the exact same. Like, it is so dependent on the person interacting with those beans on the roasting end. So like, they still shouldn't be hesitant to give you that information at all. This is the cost breakdown of a cup of coffee. This is translated. It was. I don't think the word is translated, but from pound sterling to USD by me. The editions are all in Comic Sans for readability and for emphasis. But as you can see, the breakdown of what the coffee farmer actually gets is barely above a penny. It is less than a penny and a half when it comes to the share of a $3.32 cup of coffee, which is somewhat unheard of. For the most part, that's about what we sell our drip coffee for.
Yeah, this specifically is a big batch drip cup of coffee.
Yeah, if you just walk into a coffee shop and say, I want a coffee, and they will give you this. This is the breakdown of the cost of production that goes into that. Very different in Europe. Again, not something we'll be touching on, but there's, especially in Italy, a history of subsidizing.
So Italy is known for espresso and espresso machines. Mm-hmm. They, and I believe Spain and a couple other countries, cannot charge more than the equivalent of like $1.50 because it's to preserve their heritage and it's a cultural thing that's supported by their government.
It's nuts. So that's the thing. But it is. And that's probably why you'll be hearing like people saying like, oh my God, coffee's so cheap in Europe. What's happening in America? And it's like, yeah, in some sense, like they could be subsidizing it here, but American coffee is a mess. It's not great. Here to tell you that. But Oh yeah, and if you kind of thought about it, the Dutch, I mentioned before, the Dutch stole the coffee plants from Mocha and created the monopoly. Eventually, it ceded to a British monopoly, and eventually, it ceded to global capitalism. But um, to this day, the Netherlands is still the number one consumer per capita of coffee, I believe. Like the history runs that deep. Like that was the 1690s we were talking about where that started. And in 2020, or at least within the 21st century, they are still the number one per capita consumer of coffee. It goes deep. All right, here we are, part two. Coffee on the user end. Jojo. Got him. That was a stand, actually. Don't worry about it. Which one of us is the stand? You'll never know. So part two, coffee on the user end. This is where we're going to be talking more about just user interaction with the coffee, and hopefully once you've procured an ethical bag, where you can go from here. Oh yes, yeah, I've heard about that documentary. That's something I haven't watched yet, but I have it on my to watch list. All right, roasting 101. Just kidding. That's way too much to cover for a morning coffee panel, especially an intro coffee panel. We can't really tell you how to roast. We can tell you what to look out for, though. Can you explain what this rainbow-looking circle is?
Can we pull up the full size?
The full size? Full size and interactive can be found at notbadcoffee.com/flavor-wheel-en. Let me see if I can pull it up for my wife. Can I get a my wife in chat?
Oh God, no.
There we are. All right, this is the roaster's wheel.
So in the center. Oh God, you're right.
It's just hard to see. Can you explain what it is, though?
No, the audio device file.
Oh, sorry.
So in the center are the macro notes, I guess, because under fruity you see berry, you get dried fruit and other fruit. That can mean just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it does get more in depth for that. And this kind of helps you figure out what you might like in a cup. And towards the bottom, I believe that blue one is stuff you want to avoid.
More or less, yeah. It is. I don't know anybody who would want a papery cup of coffee, but the note is there. And if you're interacting with the page online, it'll actually go into depth on what their standard is for what that note means. So under fruity, I think it's strawberry. Underneath the berries, it'll actually give you like directions on how to make their standard. So it's just like take 2 strawberries and sugar and muddle them in a jar, and that's what we mean by strawberry. And it's just like when you're thinking about roasting notes for coffee, it is pretty much like LaCroix. It is a hint of any of those flavors. You're not gonna hardly ever drink a cup and be like, oh, this tastes like cherry juice. Like it is. There's nuance to it. I wish it were like that, but it's there. You just have to find it. Oh man, we got fruity coffee haters in chat. My favorite kind. I'm just also a baby. All right, regions of coffee and their attributes. This is also a very broad look into it, like because there are only ever regional attributes due to varietal, due to like the climate and conditions. So these are broad, but it is what it is. So coffee of Africa tends to be bright and fragrant. I know the Ethiopia that our shop carries is that very much. It is very floral. This is mostly due to the volcanic mountains, rich soil, dry environment, less water. Coffees from this region are also tend to be what's called naturally processed, which we will get into later. Just means that water isn't involved in at least the first part of the process, because like why would you waste water on these coffee beans when there's another way you could do it. Coffee of South and Central America. It says most likely to be mild and smooth. This is because it is the biggest export of coffee. Like most of the coffee in the world, I believe, is grown in Brazil. So because of that, it's grown to be palatable for most people. So like, there's nothing wrong with liking coffee from here because it is designed for you to like it. It's designed to be drinkable. It's abundant. It's good. It is good coffee. Um, they also have like the higher climes and stuff like that they can grow on. So that's an interesting attribute they can claim. Says here, Colombian Supreme and Mexican Alturas are more balanced in flavor and acidity with a nutty accent and hint of caramel. I have gotten nutty from South American coffees before, so it tracks. All here tracks. This is all from meadalane@coffee.com. I will, again, have these links compiled and posted in the Discord, or you can message me for them on Instagram. I will try my best to have this up at least by the end of the convention. All right. Coffee of the Caribbean. So when you have the kind of rainfall and mountains, what little mountains they don't say it's not mountainous, but like the kind of climate you have in the Caribbean makes for really good coffee. And this is something I wanted to touch on because it mentions they cultivate high quality Arabica beans. There are technically two kinds of greater beans. There's Arabica and then there's Robusta. My wife has informed me that Arabica is the one you will get most often because it is regarded as the better of the two. Robusta is easier to grow, but Arabica is just what's hot, is how they put it.
Robusta has fallen out of favor.
Yeah.
You mentioned you like fruity coffee. That used to be controversial.
Really?
We would only go for like heavy body, nutty, all Latin American.
That makes sense, yeah.
And it's falling into favor for more fruity. It's starting to fall back out. I don't know where we're gonna go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I know like the Italian preference is for darker, fuller body. So, but yeah, most of the time you'll pick up Arabica. If it's Robusta, it will say so because that is a little funky, fresh thing that they can just throw in there if they want to be controversial. I mean, if you have it, I'd encourage you to try it.
Robusta gets a bad rap.
Mm-hmm.
It can be really good. If you've ever had a Vietnamese coffee, definitely a Robusta.
Mm-hmm.
You need a heavier everything to go with that condensed milk.
That's true. Yeah. So there's a thing for everything. I really want Vietnamese coffee right now.
Not right now, God.
No, I'm lactose intolerant and I will die. But I want it. Anyway, coffee of the Asian Pacific Islands, full-bodied and bold. The one that comes to mind immediately for me is the Hawaiian bean. Kona coffee is my dad's favorite. He regards it as this like top tier thing. It's very, very good. There is even like trade certifications on what you can call Kona coffee and what you have to call a blend at a certain percentage point. It is that regulated. Something I wanted to also note, I didn't get to touch on the coffee imperialism side of things, that the Kingdom of Hawaii was trading with Brazil and got coffee in the 1820s. Like, they were their own full kingdom and they were sovereign and they had trade before we went in there and mucked it all up. Just respect to the Kingdom of Hawaii. But yeah, great coffee though. Unfortunate means that it ended up being in our control. So volcanic islands, rich soil, abundant rainfall, just similar to the Caribbean, makes for good coffee. All right, now we're going to move on to coffee labels, what you might see on a bag and what it might mean. Some of it's intuitive, some of it's not. I think I got jokes, as evident in number 1. Coffee's name, at least it's not named, by Alice and the Pirates. I encourage you to share what you think Alice and the Pirates would name a bag of coffee in the comments. But this bleeds into number 2, the coffee's origin. most of the time, if it's a single origin, or even if it's not, it will say the place where it was grown, usually as like the main name. There are some blends that will just be a name and they won't tell you what's in it because it's proprietary or some business. It's not to say it's not trusted. It is like they're allowed to be discreet about it, but I just tend to like getting the ones where I know where it's from. Farm producer. This is also kind of harsh standard now that I'm thinking about it. If the info is impossible to find, I wouldn't trust it. It shouldn't be like pulling teeth to try to find at least the like farm where it's from, not the farm, but the what am I trying to say here?
The source, they might not necessarily get it from a farm, but you can find out where your green beans will come from.
Yes. Oh, hey. Oh my god, Avina and Simone are in chat. Hello. We have chat pulled up on the phone. This is fun. This is awesome. All right, and then elevation of growth. Aim for about 2,000 meters above sea level or higher. This is just because of how it is. Oh, hi. Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm looking forward to the panel that they're doing later, so stay tuned for their panel on layering because, oh, a bee loves layering. Anyway, 2,000 meters above sea level or higher. This is because when the bean is grown at a higher level, it's condensed, and so people tend to regard that as just better, but like you can find an amazing coffee that was grown at like 1350. Like it's not going to be huge. It is just something to look out for because you might have a type. You might find out like things grown around 1500 or what you like if it gets that specific for you. But it's just info for you to have. Variety of coffee. Not to source Wikipedia, but they list 43 different varieties. That's a lot. First professional opinion, that's a lot. But we're not going to be able to go through all of those patently, obvious, I would hope. But
I think I've only had maybe a dozen.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like there are 43 of them doesn't mean that the majority of them are in use. Processing method is an interesting thing. It's an interesting aspect that will more directly affect the coffee, I believe, than a lot of these other aspects. There's a wet process or washed process. There is the dry process or natural process, and then there is the newer honey process, which is kind of a mix of the two. Would you be able to elaborate on those?
Yeah. So coffee is a lot of it. Am I picked up on this one?
You can just hover it next to you if that's easier.
I don't know. Coffee is just a byproduct. Wrong. Is a byproduct of its area, very much, just like what else we've been covering. So a wash process is very common everywhere but Africa, basically, because they don't have a lot of water, and that's not where I would direct my resources. So a wash process, your farmer will collect their harvest, their crop. So coffee is a fruit. It's called a cascara. So think of a cherry. Mm-hmm. What they're gonna do is submerge it in a lot of water, and then they're gonna run it through a machine that basically will separate the pulp and then the bean. So think of getting rid of a pit in a cherry, and they'll separate that, and then they'll let it dry out, and that's a wash process. In the natural process, we're just gonna lay them the whole fruit onto a drying bed, and they're just gonna wait. It's gonna eventually separate. Mm-hmm. Somebody will have to manually do it. So this is where your money should go. Somebody will be doing it.
Yep.
And the honey process.
It's a harder process to explain because it involves like the anatomy of the bean, and it has to do with the mucilage that is produced in the cascara, the coffee cherry. In process, they separate the mucilage from the.
It stays on.
Okay.
So they depulp it basically with some water.
Yes.
but they keep everything else on and then let it dry.
Yes.
That extra sugar is supposed to stay present.
And it makes it sweeter. I mean, I did have a honey processed coffee, and it was notedly sweeter.
I personally don't understand this because when you roasted it, it's like 450 degrees.
Yeah.
How does it stay sweet?
Caramelized.
I did want to touch up on one thing about wash versus natural. A lot of people will see natural as dirty because it wasn't washed.
Not the case.
I've had very clean cups. I've also had some very earthy cups because there's a lot of
there's more to it that goes on
to it.
Yeah.
Just figure out what you like. There's nothing wrong with it.
Pierce Maiden asked, so is the coffee bean like a seed?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. This actually does lead us on to the next one, certification, specifically bird safe. Because
we're reading that right.
Yes, you're reading that right. There's a bird safe certification that coffee roasters can apply for. It is if the bird can ingest this seed and not die, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I just thought it was a really neat certification that you could take on. Organic and fair trade are, again, very stringent standards that the roasters, the coffee traders, they have to adhere to. And then the flavor notes, I meant to say depends on bean and roaster alike, not roast and roaster alike, because that's a given. But the different beans will produce a different, will give you a different set to work with, and then the roaster will choose what they want from that set. So they're never going to be alike, almost never. But they're just greater overarching similarities. Do you want to grab the green beans?
Yeah.
We have some green beans here.
I actually, we said we weren't going to get into roasting. What you're basically doing when you roast beans is shove it in a machine that's just like a spitting oven.
Mm-hmm.
It goes at about 400, 450 degrees, and you'll do that until you hit first crack. Don't worry about this. So I air fried some because
that's right. You could just do this in an air fryer. Whether or not it's good is the whole thing entirely. But I will say that it was not bad. So that was wild. Oh, the coffee that's made from.
I guess we can talk about cat poop coffee. It got really big in media.
No, I know. I just forgot about it.
So there's a couple of different ones of those. There's one with a deer. I think there's some with monkeys.
And some with civets. I thought might be the one you heard of because civets have square poop, and that's unique. So did koala.
So what they'll do, not all of the farms are entirely ethical because they'll force feed them, but how it used to happen is they would track these animals that were eating the coffee fruit and then wait for them to process it and then sift through the stool. And then I hope, they gotta wash it, right?
Yeah, of course they do.
I don't know, but because it's been processed by the stomach acids, it changes how it tastes.
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to give a more mild, more clean cup.
It's technically already been processed.
Yeah. Don't buy into it. It's not worth it. For the price it is, it's
gimmicky. I think they run close into the hundreds if you want to buy just a small bag.
To save your money. Save it for something that's actually worth it and probably doesn't abuse animals. That one is not natural process.
I don't know.
I don't know what
I haven't personally tried it. I don't think I'm that interested, just on the ethical point.
That's true too. All right, so I have a practice label here for if we wanted to go through it. So Ethiopia, that is going to be where it is from. Amaro Gayo, that's an example.
That's the farm.
That would be the name of the farm. Sometimes it will have a readout of where it's from and the other helpful things. Region, natural process, elevation 1950 meters above sea level. So it is short of that 2,000 meter, but I don't think it would be enough to deter you if that's still the range you're aiming for. Heirloom varietal specifically. You huff and beans.
You huffing beans on stream?
I forgot to show it. We were talking about.
Oh yeah, we forgot to show the green beans, but I mean, there's no way to.
It's.
Hold on, I'm gonna be an influencer. Hold on. Hold on. Can you see? This is nonsense. Can you see it? Is it? It's just a bad webcam quality, but they are just markedly lighter than a roasted bean.
They smell extremely earthy and umami.
I saw there's something in chat says I heard they discovered it because the locals were making their coffee that way because farmers would ban the locals from the coffee crops. That's one legend. There's another legend where a farmer just noticed these goats eating this plant and then going ape, going hog wild, if you will. And he was like, "Oh, there's something to that, huh?" That's the other myth. There's no documented historical like concrete this is how they found coffee, so unfortunately it is all fun myths like that. But
I think
the bot makes mean bean machine.
I think what Jocelyn was saying was about the civets.
Oh, the civets. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm still on coffee history. Yes, the dancing goats. All right. So it'll usually at least tell you the notes that you're supposed to expect from it. I do not know why they would not tell you that because that is probably the most helpful user information they can give. And when it has notes in a bag, it's not necessarily like you're gonna get these especially. You're gonna get blueberry. You're gonna get cherry. Like it's just things that if you brew it correctly, these are the possible notes you'll get from it. Like again, think about LaCroix. This is just a hint of. This is not like you're gonna drink a fruit salad, unfortunately. Roast date. I got jokes. And then it'll also tell you the weight, obviously. Roast dates, actually, people come in and want the freshest roast possible so often when, like, that's not often what you actually want. Like, by the time, like, I know when our shop gets our coffee from our distributor, we bag it immediately and put it on our shelf pretty much immediately. What I would say that you should wait a week from when it was roasted to enjoy it. And I mean, if you're gonna go into a coffee shop and you know you won't touch it for a week, that's a whole other thing. But like, don't feel like you have to get the freshest beans to get the best cup. Is like what I'm trying to come across.
Because when coffee gets roasted, it basically undergoes a chemical transformation, and it takes like a day or two for all the gases to settle.
Mm-hmm.
You will not get the same cup from like fresh roast as you will 3 days rested,
mm-hmm.
or 3 days after roast, or however they'll say it.
Yeah. And for making cold brew, you want to wait at least a week. If that's something you're interested in, it's not something we're going to be talking about, but just a tip.
If you have coffee from 1969, DM me.
Hit our line. And yeah, no, it does get stale. Like, even just like leaving the beans out, it'll aerate them. They'll get stale. If you grind the beans, I thought I was galaxy braining in college one night. I was like, oh, I'm gonna pre-grind them and put them in the coffee machine and start it the next day. I'm so smart. I just need to press a button and then the coffee was stale.
I tried to warn them.
They did. They tried. Unfortunately, no, it does not age like fine wine. Oh my god, that's right. All right. So this is where we get into the pros and cons of the specific roasts because I wanted to dispel some myths. The content from these slides is from coffeegearx.com. This is just stuff I saw and I concurred with, so I put it on here, but it's their content. So some pros. A light roast. It retains more of the coffee's original flavor, so what was present in the bean. Higher antioxidant levels because it hasn't been roasted out of it. It's faster and easier to roast because you do not have to leave it there long. Has more pronounced individual coffee characteristics, so the varietal means a little more. I put this as a neutral because it is something that just people have to be aware of, but the light roast is the one that has the most caffeine. The light roast. Dark roast does not have the most caffeine, no matter how it tastes. It is the light roast is the most caffeine. So if you're going into a Starbucks and you want something caffeinated, you like ask for the blonde roast. because it has more caffeine, and 2, because they burn the crap out of their coffee, and anytime you can't ask for a blonde roast.
If you want caffeine, get cold brew.
That, yeah, also that, like, cold brew is steeped bean water for like 24 or more hours. It is the most caffeine you can get out of the bean, I believe, per ounce. But so that's something. But cons of the light roast is that there are no oils in the coffee beans, if that's something you're looking for. Some people really do like a hearty, oily cup. And there's also a higher acidity associated with it because it has been so untouched by the roasting process. Yeah, explaining this to Starbucks people is wild.
Starbucks has made my life so much harder.
So many people come in asking for caramel macchiatos when a traditional macchiato is 2 ounces of milk, 2 ounces of espresso, or something along those lines.
Macchiato means marked in Italian.
Yeah.
So it's going to be your espresso, with a little bit of milk and a dollop of foam to mark it.
It is such a small thing. A caramel macchiato at Starbucks is much more like a caramel latte, but it's not a huge caffeine difference. I would say it's at least, like, if you're caffeine sensitive. I mean, if you're super caffeine sensitive, you shouldn't be drinking coffee, or you should be doing decaf. But that still has caffeine in it. Like, there's no real way to get it all out. But if people are just worried about it, and you're sensitive, there's at least a little bit of a difference. It's a noticeable difference, but it's not huge.
Yeah, we don't talk about decaf at all, huh?
We do not talk about decaf at all.
Quick side note then. We used to introduce chemicals to get rid of the caffeine, and it was like making people very sick. So now we use something called like a water process.
Water process, yeah.
Yes. So in tea, what they'll do is basically give it a quick hot steep, take it back out, let it dry, because most of the caffeine comes out in that point. The Swiss water process is a little different because you can get like decaf green beans.
Yeah. We're going to keep going because I hit that halfway mark where I wanted to be doing the other things. Roast pros and cons, medium. So medium roast is generally where most third wave coffee roasters will place their roast because it's just the best of both worlds, really. Fuller coffee body than the light roast, relatively less bitter, more balanced acidity and flavor, but there's still little to no oil in the beans. A little more than the light roast, as you could probably guess, but yeah. Okay, go ahead. Dark roast. All right. So they said in this content that excellent for brewing espressos, theoretically. I don't know about that, but I know it is an Italian standard to use dark roast for espresso. It does provide the thickest coffee body. It's a richer taste because it has more to do with like what the roaster would have put into it and what they would have taken from the bean profile. It can be a little bitter sometimes, and then I don't know if it's a con. Most of the flavor comes from roasting. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it is like if you're looking for the bean to be expressed, a dark roast is not the way to go. In the neutral, it is the least caffeine. Keep down your noggins.
Most shops don't run dark roast anymore because of all the oils.
Yeah.
They don't maintain their grinders as well as they should. All those oils stick to the burrs of the grinder, and you can just get around that by cleaning.
Yeah.
But they're very oily.
Oh, real quick, could you hand me the progression? This is the.
Yeah, we got our light.
This is our light roast.
I don't know how well it's gonna get picked up.
I actually don't know how well it's gonna get picked up.
We can redisplay during coffee cam.
Yes, we could redisplay during coffee cam, but this is the medium. It doesn't look that much different, but I think if you put the light and the dark next to each other, you can really see, at least in our natural. It's not natural lighting, but in our lighting,
it's a lot easier to see when it's actually ground too.
Yeah, that's true too. All right. So yes, finally we are to the demo portion of the demonstration. This is just the last panel. Thank you for starting that. So you've come all this way for me to tell you you can use any roast you want for any brewing method because it's all up to personal preference and the kind of taste you prefer. Great job, gang. We did it. There are no parameters you really have to adhere to. There's just recommendations. But there's nothing stopping you from loving a pour over dark roast. There's nothing stopping you from loving a light espresso. It's up to your preference, up to your ability. But what we'll be going over is the most common, like the lanes that they go through. Starting with the French press. Well, like it's not where we're starting. We're starting with a drip coffee, which we don't have a drip coffee machine. So I kind of juked a little bit on that being a demonstration, but we will talk about drip coffee because it is the most common thing people have in their house is a machine. We're going to start with that, but the French press, you can get the strongest flavor from the coffee and all the nice aromatic oil, and it works well with almost any roast profile. Pour-overs work best with a light roast because you're trying to get the nuance out of it, and drip coffee works best with medium and dark roast. Well, nothing beats a dark roast for espresso making. I put that asterisk there because I, again, do not necessarily agree with that, but that is a wider standard. It's just that the Bay Area, at least specifically, at least not the Pacific Northwest, the West Coast. I don't know how broad that goes.
This is a very spicy take.
Oh,
I think it might be dated.
That's also fair to say. Yeah, it might be a little dated information.
A dark roast is great if you're a world latte art champion.
Yeah.
All the oils allow your latte art to have more contrast and it allows it to sit. I can get more into that. They got life hacks.
We can also, maybe we'll do a latte art panel, shorter next time, just showing off. But that's not what we're doing now. That noise you might hear growing is the, oh boy, is the kettle we have running because we're starting to get that set up. But yeah, also these slides will be available later if you're interested. So in case we kind of blew past something, it'll be there for your resource. All right, so demonstrating and also stretch. So we're gonna have to transition now to using this as a coffee cam, an actual coffee cam. What's up?
I'm trying to look at the other chat.
Oh. Okay, sorry about that.
We're good.
Okay, we're good. So now we're gonna transition. Demonstrate, do what you can. We're okay. Let's just go. I'm gonna mute me real quick, so talk amongst yourselves. Again, Alice in the Pirates coffee names. Do what you will. So let me.
For the ex Starbucks baristas in
Yes,
chat.
can I get an F for the ex Starbucks baristas in chat? Y'all are the backbone of
the holiday season.
Of the holiday season. Anyway. All right, so we are set up in our, again, duct taped together setup for trying to demonstrate a couple of things. So, but first we're going to be starting with the drip coffee. So, like I had mentioned before, I'm going to sit here for a second. We do not have a drip coffee machine. I kind of want one because I've been using a French press for a while, and I just don't like taking the extra steps. Thank you, my wife. They're going to be doing most of this demonstration. I'm just here to talk about it.
I'll probably be standing.
You will be standing in a second, but drip coffee machines are pretty straightforward, right? You just have a coffee filter that looks like a big version of this. Thank you for liking the setup. We really wanted to get a coffee, not coffee, like
an arm.
The movable
thing.
Yeah, phone thing, movable arm for this.
There's no easy word for it. We tried to Google it, and we searched up cell phone stand arm clamp video.
Yeah. All right. So for a drip coffee machine, you usually have a you can hold it under here now. Nice. It'll look like this, except bigger. You just put the coffee in and plug it into the machine. That's what most people do. There are a couple ways you can maximize your experience with a drip coffee machine. What I will say is starting with a good bag of beans is like the most you can do. Because if you have good beans, you really can't go wrong with anything you might do with a drip coffee machine. The tips we will give for this is to wet the filter first. Wetting the filter allows for the gases and what you could call the crema to, instead of attached to the filter, to stay actually in the coffee.
It also, if you have a bleached filter like I do, it gets rid of any like papery taste, and it can help you pre-wet your
grounds,
the cup, whatever vessel it's going into,
what have you. And then when it comes to filling it up, you said you only want it to fill to a certain place.
Oh yeah, if you have a little drip machine, you don't want to fill it more than, I would not do more than a third, because what's going to happen when that water hits is it's going to expand and start to bloom. And if you put too much coffee in there, it's going to get everywhere.
Yeah.
I have done this.
I have done this.
I thought I was galaxy braining it.
No. Yeah. There's a process in espresso making that is the pre-wet. And so there is actually it uses in both of these, pre-wet or bloom even. Those are words we'll end up using, but I guess we'll explain more about that once we actually get to a process that'll use it further, but
we can talk about it when we get to it.
Yeah.
Like so, once we actually start the bloom.
Anything left for the drip coffee you could give as a recommendation?
The best thing I can say about keeping your coffee good and fresh is find a good airtight and container. Keep it out of the sun. Try not to grind it until you're going to use it.
Oh wait, sorry, I just realized, sorry about the tech. I do have slides. This isn't the end of the the presentation either. If there's any way, there was a way I could put the coffee can, I don't know. This is just a meme for y'all because I have to maintain my meme dominance. But yes, please don't put your coffee in the freezer.
I have a spicy take about that.
Oh, what's your spicy take about freezer coffee?
About not wasting it. If you vacuum seal it and keep it in a good container, it's not going to be as good as fresh, but it can still be done.
But you don't need a freezer.
No, there is a myth that if you freeze the coffee, it'll last longer or taste better. It's probably going to taste freezer burn because you're going to throw it in a Ziploc or some shit.
Yep.
Oh,
swear jar. All right. So what do we have to say about the drip coffee machine? I put this one up here because it's gorgeous. So yeah, wet your filter. Something else to improve your drip coffee experience: pre-warm your cup. Just kind of get hot water and leave it in the cup until the coffee is ready. It just less heat lost means you get to keep more of the flavor. If you have if your coffee machine has a tank and it's not hooked up to something, then use filtered water for the tank. Just the less particles you can introduce to it, the better. But that's what we can give for you to maximize your experience with with a drip coffee machine. But now to the French press. So,
Oh, are we doing French press first?
you're going to do French press and then pour over, yes.
Okay.
Would you like to do it the other way around?
No, that's fine. I think the heat I said is okay.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. All right, so moving to the French press. So I had, if you're following along at home, sound off in chat because I can help a little past what the minimal things I gave on the Instagram post was. But let me put this in so it's not dangling. So this is a French press. Let me see here. All right. I'll turn it to the side for this cam. It is comprised of the actual container itself. This has a base on the bottom, and this is the plunger. It has a filter, a metal filter on it to catch grounds and also to catch some oil, but not much. This goes in here, and you plunge. That's pretty much all how a French press works. But you can see it comes in many sizes. Like the photo actually on this slide is one I took when I was trying to find a French press. Don't talk to me or my son's son ever again. But yes, the little steel hand grinders. Actually, I'm wearing the My Coffee Time little hand grinder pin. I will show that off later. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's for me.
Okay, well. So for a French press, what I'm going to say to do, I might not do here just for time's sake, but something you're going to want to do is, again, pre-warming and trying to retain as much heat as possible. So I would put hot water in this while I ground my beans, probably, just to keep the heat going in this. I'm not going to do that now because of time, and I don't want to waste too much water. Oh, that's why you brought that. I'm just going to keep it. But so I would pre-warm this while the coffee is getting ground. Again, a French press would best be suited for the coarser grounds. It's not as coarse as you can go, but sometimes that might give you trouble with the plunging, so maybe dial it back a little bit. It's all a give and take, but the way I do French press. Now, this is the coffee I'm using. Which one did we pick out for today?
Rwanda.
A Rwanda coffee, and this is the grind setting is different from grinder to grinder, but this is the coarsest, or just under?
Just a little under.
So the texture you're going to want to be looking for is that of like breadcrumbs. You'll probably see that mentioned a lot, but it's supposed to look like kind of chunky breadcrumbs. Ta-da. Anyway, so let's say I pre-warmed this. I dumped my water out. I'm just going to get this in there. Oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't go everywhere. Slowly. Don't rush it.
You don't need to use it all either.
Oh, it didn't?
Oh, I'm trying to switch you.
No, it's okay. So I have about 23 grams here. I don't know if you can even see that, but it's here. I'm gonna try to even it out a little bit in the container. We'll set it down. So I have 23 grams here. For my first pour, I am going to take my kettle and I'm going to pour to double that. So I'm going to zero it out, knowing I have 23 grams. So double that is, quick math, 46. And also I just want to show off pink kettle. What do you guys think of the Keurig?
Gets the job done.
It gets the job done, but we can talk more about it in the Q&A section, I think. Yeah. All right. So I have my kettle. Gooseneck kettle works the best for like precision. This method doesn't really need precision, but what I'm going to do here is pour to 46. That is going to be my bloom. It is going to be double whatever I did for my amount of coffee. This again will depend on how much coffee you put in, the size of your coffee, size of your French press, I guess. Oh, and I'm going to start the time to start knowing when to bloom. I probably should have done that first, but trying to multitask. I'm going to take these 2 chopsticks. If you have a long wooden spoon, that might be a little better, but I'm just going to assist in the wetting of the grounds and just make sure the water has reached all parts of it, at least a little bit. But I'm only going to do that gingerly. I don't want to agitate it too much. So it is just going to sit like this for about till it reaches 30 seconds, which is where we are currently at. So now, once it's done blooming, the bloom is so the gases escape and start to incorporate into the coffee. I'm going to then just pour until it is full. This coffee method is a lot less like elegant than the pour over. This very much is just about getting out of the roast or the bean.
So that lighter layer that we're seeing, that is the crema that's coming out. You don't see a lot of that in the black coffee because it's not done through a pressurized system that you would get from an espresso machine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to show up in your cup, but it is there.
Yes. All right. So now this is at I think my full is about 360. I'm going to wait until this hits 3 minutes, 30 seconds. I want to maintain the heat for as long as possible. So I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to put the top on, but do not touch this plunger until it hits 3 minutes, 30 seconds, or the end of your steep time. So this method is kind of similar to tea, almost. Having fun? All right. Let's see. Yeah, the Keurig, again, so the French press is the probably most sustainable method because it doesn't use a paper filter. It is just this water, coffee grounds, that's it. But it is also hell to clean. As you can imagine, there are ones that can like dismantle so you can get in there really good and clean it, but coffee grounds don't do well in sink drains. You do want to try to get as much of it into the trash can as possible, but that's not always possible. But yeah, save the environment. I would recommend against Keurigs, or at least getting the reusable mesh Keurig pods if you have one. But we can talk more about that in the Q&A. I just forgot that we had like a wait time. What are the ways around sediment for a French press mentioned on the slide? Oh yes. Oh yeah, there are ways around sediment. So that's the other thing with the French press that some people don't like, is at the end of it, there's always going to be kind of sediment left over because the filters in these aren't like fine paper filters, they are just mesh. And you can get around that by using a paper filter, which kind of negates like the most eco-friendly aspect of it, but it's a paper filter versus a plastic cup for a Keurig. Like it's a marked difference, but you would just pour this through a coffee filter. That would get out the sediment. Again, if you're going to do that, wet the coffee filter first, as it do. Yes, oh my gosh, I wanted to do Turkish coffee, but I'm not well versed in that, but it is very good. And you can you compost coffee grounds? We used to live in San Francisco, and there was something about not being able to. I don't know.
No, we can.
Okay, you can.
What they had such a weird outline.
It was, yeah.
No, and especially if you have like a local like community farm, see if you can give it to them. Usually they'll hit up coffee shops first because we'll give you so much more value than like a house will.
So we passed the 3 minute 30 mark. So now I'm going to take this and stop the time. And now I'm going to plunge. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep this on just for stability. And I'm going to very slowly push this down. If there is barely any give and you can't really do this, it means you ground it too fine and you need something coarser. If it just kind of glides through like there's nothing in there, you did it too coarse, and you're going to need to make it just the slightest bit finer. All right. This is about bottoming out. I don't know if y'all can see, but there's sediment all at the bottom. Now I'm going to decant this immediately because it will still keep brewing in there. So I have my cup. I'm just going to. Oh, that's your cup. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Because I need the narrow mouth.
Yes, you do need it. Okay. So I have this cup instead. Got a lot of clear cups. Anyway, so now I'm going to decant this, if you will, into this bigger cup. These French press coffees are, again, oily. I mean, if you use beans that produce oil, it's high in cholesterol. It's probably not the most healthy process, but it's killer for pastries. It's so good with a good donut or a croissant, almond croissant, chocolate croissant. There's a lot of croissants. But there we have our French press coffee. Now all that's left in here is
The wet.
the wets, the grinds. It's not fun. Oh, this cable has been in here this entire time. Whoops.
I think that's what chat was trying to tell us.
Oh, yeah, I'm not observant. I'm so sorry. But yeah, that is what's left over and what I get to clean later. Now, that is all to the side. We used a Rwanda. I should be getting heavier berry, I think, is what the notes wanted.
Oh, I think what happened is they had to mute us. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jamie.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that was something that it's thicker because it is made with the French press. And oh man, that's really good. Okay. It's gonna be hard to not sip from this for the rest of the presentation, but we will continue. Now, to the last method, the pour over, specifically the Kalita wave system. This is something that Kara has been doing for a long time, so it is going to be Kara's go at it. Do you have to heat up more water?
Yeah, but that can wait to the bloomer first pour, maybe.
The bloomer first one?
Yeah, but so this lost a lot of its heat. It's at 184 now.
Oh, okay. I'll set it up in your absence, but I'll also talk about it. So the pour over is probably the most precise method, and but also the most time intensive, the most labor intensive as far as like concentration goes. Oh yeah, if you're gonna get a pour over, it is better than just drip coffee because it is detailed work. But I'm begging you as a barista to not order one during a rush because there would be times where I have 5 drinks on the bar and there's only 2 people, the barista and the barback, and ordering one of these takes one of us away from doing other drinks pretty much
solid 5 to 6 minutes.
Permanently for 5 to 6 minutes. So it's kind of a line killer. Obviously, if it's something you want, order it. But like, if you would be so kind, love your baristas. Order one of these when it's slow, not when it's in the middle of a rush.
Order it when it's busy. You were tipping.
Yes, if you do want to order one when it's slow, tip. You gotta. Oh yeah. You gotta. Anyway. Yes. All right. So pour overs, great for finessing notes from light roasts. A lot of moving parts. So there's a lot of ways to individualize the cup, but there are also a lot of possibilities for error. And I say error in both lightly because there's no real wrong way to do it. It's just maybe not what you wanted to do with it. Do not let it intimidate you. The photo is from Big House Beans. All right.
So this is a pretty unique brewer. It's called the Kalita Wave. Do we need a switch?
Yeah, sure. Just for your microphone. Oh, that brand was backwards?
Yeah.
Oh. Amazing.
So this is considered a flatbed because instead of turning into like a V, like a cone, it just flattens out over here with some drainage holes. What we're going to do now is put our filter and this in.
Would you be able to make the coffee cam side by side with us? Because this is probably like the most detailed one. So I know I have a slide for it, but it would probably just be more helpful to put this side by side. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to start with.
So I'm going to pre-warm everything. I try not to hit the walls on it. I just go straight down because the water is going to be traveling up regardless. You don't have to get super, you don't have to do what I do and spill your water everywhere. I'll probably just stop it there. I don't need all of it.
The point is to try to let the water soak up into the filter, to let it naturally wet instead of trying to like deliberately put the water on it. that? Oh, towel.
And so when that water drains down, we're going to pre-wet this so we can retain a little more of the heat. You don't need what I have, which is a very nice kettle that I can change the degrees on. Like right now, this is 207 degrees, and I know this for a fact. So we're going to put this aside. You can save that water. You can water your plants with it. You can do a lot of things with it.
You can also pre-warm your cup.
We did pre-grind these. I don't personally do that for my own cups, and I don't like to do that because I know what it's going to taste like, and I get kind of disappointed when it doesn't. So this came under 23 grams. We're at 22.7 or so. We're going to zero that out still. And what I'm going to do now is the bloom. So what I did earlier is level this out, because that way when I pour it, it's not going to give an uneven distribution. And I'm going to start closer to the center and just kind of go slowly.
And I'm going to start the time.
Thank you.
This is a timed process, like much more than the French.
I hit about 50 grams. I think I ran out of water.
Oh, fun. I hate when that happens.
So all this bubbling is the gases coming back up, and it's just kind of starting its process right now. Normally about the 30-second mark, give or take, you can go a little longer if you want. You just don't want your grinds to dry up, which it is definitely going to be doing because I didn't have enough water in my kettle.
Unfortunate. If we had two kettles, obviously this wouldn't be a problem. We usually have two kettles at the shop, but oh no, maybe we have to get a second cute pink kettle. Oh no. Oh no. Can you say that your kettle matches your cord?
Oh, it does. If it's ready, it's ready then. And then so we're going to go back around again. That lighter part is that crema again, and it's going to be getting into the cup. Keep this very steady and go as evenly as you can. I stopped it at about 150. And we're just going to keep letting it do its thing, and it's going to slowly drain out.
Mm-hmm. The first two pours are going to be more concentrated on the grind, but the second two are more like aggressive in stirring, right?
That's how I personally do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it.
Let's see.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do even just the pour over. You get some spicy takes. When I started at the shop I'm at now, they told me that I was going to be doing an aggressive pour for my pour overs, which I thought was wild.
It's also weird to say aggressive pour.
I need to demonstrate what they meant by aggressive pour because it worried me.
Oh gosh.
So this is starting to dip a little lower now. Our lighting's not super good, but once you start to see the grinds kind of peek through the water bed, you are going to want to just give it again. You don't want to go too fast because I did disturb my coffee bed. That won't necessarily change anything about it in its taste, but we do want a nice even bed. It kind of shows that you gave an even pour and you did dedicate the time to it.
You distributed it well. Do you want to pour more in there, or do you think
I have one more pour.
No.
This wasn't quite to temp, so I already know it's not going to be quite what I want it to be.
This is just for
demonstration. This is just for demo.
Yeah. This is a demo only. We can make our coffee later. We can get our coffee free from the shop later.
Yeah, when you start working in coffee and you don't have to pay for coffee, and then you start having to pay for coffee, it does something to you.
It really does.
I'm friends with a lot of local shops, or I'm friends with a lot of people that also work in coffee. So when I go visit, I'm usually not paying for coffee. So when I have to, it's
a struggle.
It makes me feel something, and I don't know what it is.
The entitlement. But
yeah.
It's a little deserved because we are all underpaid.
Yeah, it looks like my coffee's kind of coming towards a choke. Normally at about 3:30 and 4, it would already be on its last pour or finishing up. but what happened is I might not have changed the grind back up. So it might be too fine. So this is another thing you can troubleshoot. It's if your pour over is taking a little too long to drain, why is that? It's probably too fine, or your dosage of the coffee beans is too high. I used to only run about 23-gram pour overs, but I've been experimenting a lot with it. I've gone down to 17 grams and a much lower temperature. Right now, this one's probably still at 207. I personally run it 203 sometimes, but I've been running it under 200 at 199 just for some blends. I have, okay, I'm gonna get added, but I have a Gesha blend. A Gesha is a very expensive coffee. They are only really grown in, I think, 3 regions right now. We have Colombia, we have Ethiopia, and I believe you can get some from
Indonesia? No. Do you want me to pull the bags?
I don't think you'll find it on the bags.
Okay.
Or Panama.
Yeah.
So it's
Would you say it's what's hot?
I don't know if it's what's hot so much as coffee bros really love to pretend they know something, and when they order a $15 cup of coffee, they think it means something else
And
about them.
you let them think it means something because that's a $15 coffee.
But so with Gesha, it's a little more fine, or it's a little less friendly. So I have started to go a lot slower with that, lower my temperature to really bring out all the flavors. Because if you go too hot, you're gonna lose a lot of what can be highlighted. But so this is just taking a minute. Sometimes these can clog too. I don't normally have that problem with the Kalita, but I have this other dripper, for example. This is another flatbed.
It's another form of roller, right?
Yeah, there's a ton of different shapes and sizes for these guys. But so this looks like it would drain pretty quickly. It uses the same type of filter.
Yeah. The Harios is another one you might have heard of, a V60.
Those are shaped like cones. You might have seen literally any other brand like that. But so for this guy, you would think it runs super good, but what ends up happening is that one of these will clog, and I'll lift it to give it a little bit of space, and it all just dumps out, and there's no way that I can control that. So I'm not sure what I'm quite doing wrong with it. I brought it into work, and my coworkers were like, I don't know either. Good luck.
It's always fun to experiment.
Yeah. You want to just keep messing around with it. So this is a nice sort of flat bed. There's no real good way to show that, but it's level. No, I don't know.
No.
It's just flat.
It's just flat.
But so you don't necessarily need all the things we have. I like the scale and the kettle because 1, I've been pampered by the shops I work at, and 2, if I want to repeat the same cup I've had, I like to know how I got there.
All right. Oh, Blue Bottle.
The kettle from Blue Bottle or the dripper? I've heard good things about the dripper. I just haven't gone back to Blue Bottle in a while.
Yeah.
They did. So my kettle is from Fellow, which is based out of San Francisco. They have one. They have a partnership with Blue Bottle, and they have a white one with a maple handle, and it's beautiful.
Oh, should we get that one next?
Maybe.
All right. So that is the last part of our demonstration, and if we could get the what's it called? The slideshow back on screen, I think we can actually officially turn off Coffee Cam. I'm not
This
mistaken.
is a cup.
That's a cup.
That's a cup. I'm getting the juiciness, but that's
so
all.
This is now the Q&A session. If you have any dire questions, I think we have about only 5 minutes left.
Sorry, y'all.
I know there's some buffer time that we may be able to take up, but I don't want to step on that as out of necessity.
Did you want this stuff?
Sure. Yeah, because I'll be doing the tech after this. Oh, thank you. I courted us. I always put
1 a.m.
at like 1 a.m. Yes. I put together our cords. It sucks because they can wear all of my favorite items. Like those 2 items barely fit me, but it just looks amazing on them. I'm wearing Meta's plus size Wizard Hood JSK. It just got released. I just got it in the mail.
very recently.
It's got pockets.
It's got pockets. Oh, hell yeah. It's got the pocket. And yes, it feels a little festive. That's kind of what I wanted to wear it. Oh yeah, I picked up this cord again on a live stream when I did the unboxing a night or so ago. Yes, meta stands. God, they've just been so good to us all year. So I'm gonna go ahead with a question that I have for you, Kara. What would you say for a pour over the differences between using like this waved filter for like a Kalita wave or like the conical filter with like a Chemex or a V60?
Chemex is so tough and it is very elusive to me. If we don't have one to show, so it's going to be hard without that. A Chemex is basically a really big, like hourglass-looking sort of beaker, and those filters are like straight up paper. It's very thick, and it's really hard for me to kind of troubleshoot that because when you make a Chemex, they only come in two sizes, like a 4-cup or a 6 to 8 cup, which is a lot of cups. The filters are really thick, so it means you want like a pretty coarse grind to kind of still
be able to turn it.
Yeah, because if you go too fine, it's going to sit for a very long time. I like Chemex if I want a big hearty batch, just like you would for a French press if I had guests over and I wanted to give them something to sip on with pastries.
Yes, that's true. Yes, they do make those big ones like I showed in the slide that were like, seeing it in person, it was just like, what? Why would I ever make this much? But like,
it is a lot of coffee.
I'm sure it's also the illusion of the tall versus like a short and wide coffee pot versus the tall and slim pour over, not pour over, French press. Do you want this chair?
No.
Okay. Are there any other questions about like roasting or maybe like coffee history? Because there's a lot that I researched and couldn't cover because of time constraints. I could give you my best educated guess about at least that half of it, but we can give more answers when it comes to like roasts or even cafes in the Bay Area if we wanted to get into that.
Shop suggestions.
Yeah, that's true too. Things to look for, items you might want to try. Maybe we can. Yeah, we didn't touch on espresso at all because obviously it's much harder to do that because espresso machines are mad expensive and not something that we can currently afford because it is like it's thousands of dollars. It is a dress you can't return. Okay. But maybe we can in the future. I know we know people who have home coffee machines. It's a whole thing, but that would have to be a panel like on basically espresso and latte art. That would probably be the most apt thing to do. Yes, if you got it, you got it. What are your coffee orders at Starbucks versus a local cafe? That's actually a really good question. So if I'm on the go, previously we were a long distance couple, and they would have to stop by. Well, if I was driving, I'd have to stop by a Starbucks. They could all get free coffee at a coffee shop, but sometimes you just have to grab coffee and go. So Starbucks order, I would probably get just a blonde coffee, like because normally I am grabbing it for economy's sake. So I would just do that. I used to like live by, and I guess die by a Trenta hazelnut latte, iced latte. Yeah, I don't know if they do Trentas for that anymore because I think that's just like too much caffeine. They can't legally give you that. But I liked that. But a local cafe, I will want to try their coffee. But I also like foam, so I'll get a cappuccino because a cappuccino is very, very foamy, but more espresso focused drink. But if you don't like the foam, but you still want to try it more espresso focused, but with milk, then a flat white will be the way you want to go. Yeah, their blonde roast is pretty good. What about you?
Starbucks coffee order something sweet because I'm just doing it for the caffeine and I want to drink it.
So like a mocha?
Dalgona coffee. Oh my god, that is the peak of could a depressed person make this? I tried it. It's not bad, but so much sugar for me.
Yeah, they don't like sugar, but baby like it's sweet. I really like dalgona coffee. It's labor intensive, but I mean if you don't have an automated whisk, then it's labor intensive. But I thought it was neat.
I whisked that by hand for like 40 minutes on my own, and I was like, "Is this good?
Is this anything?" Oh yes, no, it is so concentrated.
Instant coffee is interesting.
Oh yeah.
They basically, it's kind of like a caramelization. Basically, it's a really interesting process. But that being said, I don't know the caffeine levels of instant coffee. It's dangerous.
And if we prefer coffee hot or cold, I know hot coffee gives the flavor profiles better, but I just like cold drinks. I'm that person that will drink iced coffee in the middle of December,
Yeah,
January.
we're gay. We drink cold brew.
Yes, we're gay. We drink iced lattes. But yeah, I like dalgona coffee because it was a gimmick, and I'm a sucker for a good gimmick. So like, it is what it is. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with also like sweetened coffee because like again, it's all
your cup.
It's your cup, man.
Don't let people bully you into what you should drink.
Yeah, it's not worth it, especially because like their cup of coffee, they're trying to find things in this like bitter nonsense, and it's just like, dude, I'm just gonna sit here and drink my frappuccino and be done with it. Like it's not that deep. Yeah, so I think we're basically out of time. So thank you so much for attending our coffee panel. If there's anything you take from this, it should be that you're already doing it right, probably. But there's just hopefully we give you ways to improve on the process you are already doing. Make sure you find out whose land you're on. Attempt to pay rent if you can, but for sure at least find out whose land you're on. Allergic to dairy recommendations on how to pick non-dairy creamers, milks real quick. It depends on what you like. Our shop carries almond milk and oat milk. I love oat milk. I generally don't use creamer. I just use milk. So again, it's up to your preference. But I do know there are also, if you like thicker, there are good coconut creamers.
It does turn it into a coconut coffee, though. It's a strong flavor.
Oat milk is your best bet for the least amount of like influential flavor, though. So at least in my opinion. Yes, and if you can find it, don't use Oatly. We carry Oatly, but not ethical practices. Again, like buy what you can, but none of it is. Yeah, the whole thing. Anyway, yes, that's all for us. I think I have the last panel is the outro for this, but it's only like the one thing. Yeah, cool. So you can find Kara at Kerosene. That's their personal Instagram. They're not really active.
If you have questions, just hit it up. I don't mind answering questions about coffee. Like so much of this, you can find a lot of it on the internet, but a lot of people have spicy takes on what's best. It's your cup.
Yeah, we're here to just help you out, not steer you into a right or wrong. Obviously, you can find me at NeoRococoMemes on Instagram. I post memes there. I post resources to help people. I recently got a DM about providing more content warnings, which I will abide by. I'm very sorry for not doing that more often. I did used to do that, but ADHD, forgetful mind when I'm posting. Rococo a la mode is my personal Instagram. I will basically just be posting outfit pictures there, occasional life stuff. Obviously more active in stories on both of those accounts probably, but the links and resources will be compiled and posted in Discord by the end of the con. I'll have a link to these slides. I will have a compilation of links to go through, like where my sources were. But yeah, that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you learned something. And I hope you guys make yourself some coffee after this, because we're probably going to redo what we did. All right. Thank y'all. Big hearts.